Ronan Vale hated being stranded. His ship had been impounded. His weapons were confiscated. And worst of all, he was stuck on Velthera Prime, a planet ruled by giant, battle-loving aliens called the Tharkai. The city streets were a mess of glowing banners, hovering platforms, and towering structures carved from obsidian-like stone. Armored warriors stomped past him, some sparing him a glare before deciding he wasn't worth the trouble. Good. He preferred to be ignored. Unfortunately, trouble had a way of finding him. A sharp, panicked cry made him turn his head. Across the street, 3 heavily armored Tharkai enforcers dragged a struggling woman into an alley. Even from a distance, she was striking. Violet skin, braided black hair, and glowing amber eyes full of fury. A sleek, form-fitting battle dress of black and gold marked her as a warrior. But the glowing silver collar around her throat told another story. A slave. Ronan exhaled sharply. He knew the rules. Never get involved in alien affairs. He had enough problems of his own. But then one of the enforcers backhanded the woman, sending her crashing against a wall. Ah, hell. His body moved before his brain could argue. 2 steps. 3. Then he grabbed a discarded metal rod from the ground and swung it straight into the first enforcer's helmet. Crack. The warrior stumbled. The other 2 turned, but Ronan was already moving. He ducked under a wild punch, slipped behind the second one, and slammed his makeshift weapon into the back of their knee. The warrior collapsed with a roar. The woman wasted no time. She grabbed the fallen enforcer's weapon, a curved, razor-sharp blade, and drove it into the last attacker's shoulder. Impressive, she muttered, her voice smooth but edged with amusement. Likewise, Ronan grunted, shaking out his bruised hand. Didn't plan on fighting today. She turned to face him fully, her glowing eyes narrowing. That's when Ronan noticed the collar again. Without thinking, he reached forward and ripped it off. The silver band cracked and sparked before falling to the ground. A strange silence fell over the alley. The woman's expression shifted instantly, from cautious gratitude to pure shock. Ronan frowned. You okay?" The warriors on the ground groaned, barely conscious. The woman ignored them. She lifted a hand to her bare throat, eyes wide in some emotion Ronan couldn't place. Then she took a step closer. "You took off my collar," she said slowly, as if processing the words herself. "Yeah, it looked uncomfortable." Ronan shrugged. A long pause. Then her lips curved into a smirk, but there was something dangerous in her expression. "Human," she said, her voice suddenly sweet but firm. "Do you know what that means?" Ronan glanced at the collar on the ground, then at her. No. It means," she said, stepping even closer, "that by ancient Tharkai law." Her smirk widened. "You are now my husband." Ronan blinked. "Wait. What?" She crossed her arms, her golden eyes glowing with amusement. "Only a mate may remove a warrior's collar. You have claimed me. By law, we are now bonded." His brain refused to process the words. That can't be right." "Oh, but it is," she said, her voice practically purring. "And now, husband, we have much to discuss." The downed warriors groaned again. Somewhere in the distance, an alarm rang. Ronan sighed. He was really starting to hate this planet. Ronan Vale stood frozen. Of all the things he expected to hear after saving a random alien woman from slavers, marriage was not one of them. "You're joking," he said, watching her carefully. "Right?" The woman, Jaira Kivex, as she later introduced herself, tilted her head, her golden eyes gleaming in the dim alleyway light. "I do not joke about the sacred laws of my people." Ronan exhaled slowly. "Let me get this straight. Because I took off that collar, you think we're married?" Jaira's smirk did not fade. "No, human. We are married. It is an unbreakable bond, recognized by all of Velthera." Ronan ran a hand down his face. "You have got to be kidding me." Unfortunately, The watchful crowd gathering at the mouth of the alley told him she was absolutely not kidding. Tall, armored Tharkai warriors stared at him, whispering among themselves. Some looked shocked, others amused, and a few murderous. One warrior, towering and built like a tank, stepped forward. His deep blue skin gleamed under the streetlights, and wicked scars ran across his jawline. The red crest of his battle armor told Ronan everything he needed to know. This guy was high-ranking and very, very angry. "Jaira," the warrior growled, "explain yourself." She sighed, turning to him with the air of someone mildly annoyed. "Calvos, what an unpleasant surprise. You were promised to me." Calvos spat, his sharp teeth bared. Ronan's stomach sank. Oh, that explained the murderous looks. Jaira, however, looked utterly unimpressed. "I was promised to no one. And now I have a husband. Deal with it." Ronan took a half-step backward. "Hold on. Let's not make this my fault." Calvos turned his burning red eyes toward him. "You, human, you dare steal my claim." Ronan raised his hands. "Look, I didn't steal anything. This is a big misunderstanding." "Then you reject her?" Calvos demanded. Jaira suddenly grabbed Ronan's wrist. "He does not," she said smoothly. Ronan choked. "I don't." "You don't," she said, squeezing his wrist lightly in a clear warning. Calvos clenched his fists, his massive frame tense with fury. "Then I challenge you, human. A duel to the death." Ronan blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" The gathered crowd cheered, clearly eager for blood. "Refuse, and you dishonor your new bond," Calvos sneered. "Cowardice is not tolerated among warriors." Ronan slowly turned his head toward Jaira. "This some kind of hazing ritual?" She sighed. "I was hoping to avoid this, but you did embarrass him. He wants to kill me." "Yes. And you're okay with that?" She considered it. "I'll admit, I am curious to see if you survive." Ronan groaned. "Fantastic. Great. Loving the support." Calvos unsheathed his blade, a wickedly curved weapon with glowing red veins running through the metal. "We settle this at first light, in the arena of blood." Ronan made a face. "Really? That's what it's called?" Jaira ignored his sarcasm and turned to Calvos. "Fine. But if you lose, you accept the bond between me and my human." Calvos sneered. "I will crush him." The warriors roared in approval. Ronan, meanwhile, was mentally preparing his funeral. Jaira tugged his arm, guiding him away from the scene. "Come. You'll need rest." "Rest?" Ronan muttered. "I need a weapon, an escape plan, and a time machine to undo this disaster." Jaira chuckled. "Welcome to married life, husband." Ronan sighed. He really, really hated this planet. Ronan Vale woke up to the sound of clashing metal and distant cheers. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then reality hit. Alien planet, accidental marriage, and a duel to the death. Right. He groaned and sat up, rubbing his face. The room around him was surprisingly lavish. Black stone walls with golden carvings, a massive fur-covered bed, and a glowing red crystal embedded in the ceiling for light. Jaira had called it her war chamber, which made Ronan uneasy. Why did warriors need a whole room just for preparing battles? Before he could dwell on that, the doors slid open with a deep hum. Jaira entered, dressed in sleek black battle armor lined with gold, her long braids tied back. She carried something wrapped in cloth. "Good. You're awake," she said, setting the bundle down. "It's almost time." "Great," Ronan muttered. "Time for me to die in front of a live audience." Jaira smirked. "I have seen humans fight before. You are not without skill." "Yeah, but those fights didn't involve a 7-foot-tall alien warlord with a murder blade." She unwrapped the cloth, revealing a curved dagger with intricate carvings along the handle. "Then you should be honored. Calvos is one of the strongest warriors of Velthera. Few get the chance to fight him." Ronan stared at the tiny dagger. You do know he has a huge sword, right? Jaira rolled her eyes. Weapons do not make the warrior. Strategy does. Fantastic. Got any strategies for not dying? She leaned forward, her golden eyes gleaming. Yes, do not let him kill you. Ronan groaned. Wow. Thanks. Very helpful. She chuckled and stood. Come, husband. Let us not keep the crowd waiting. The arena of blood was a massive coliseum carved into a mountainside, its black stone walls rising high above the battlefield. Thousands of Tharkai spectators filled the stands, their voices a deafening roar as they waited for the duel to begin. Ronan stood on the red sand, feeling incredibly out of place. Across from him, Calvos towered like a living war machine, his massive frame encased in crimson armor. His obsidian greatsword pulsed with energy, humming in the air. Ronan exhaled. This was a terrible idea. The announcer, a fierce-looking Tharkai with dark green skin and ceremonial tattoos, stepped forward. By the laws of our ancestors, this duel shall decide the fate of Jaira Kivex's bond. If the human falls, his claim is forfeit. The crowd roared in approval. Ronan turned to Jaira, who stood on a high platform above the arena. Just checking. If I die, what happens to you? She tilted her head. I will be forced to accept Calvos as my mate. Ronan sighed. So, no pressure. She smirked. Fight well, husband. The announcer raised his arm. Begin. Calvos moved like a beast unleashed. His massive blade came down fast, the force shaking the ground. Ronan barely rolled aside in time, feeling the shockwave of the impact. Fight, human. Calvos bellowed, swinging again. Ronan dodged, but the tip of the sword sliced through his jacket, leaving a burning gash across his shoulder. Pain flared, but he gritted his teeth. Yeah, working on it. He couldn't match Calvos's strength. But strength wasn't everything. Ronan suddenly threw his dagger, not at Calvos, but at the ground near his foot. The warrior flinched. A mistake. Ronan lunged forward, grabbing a handful of red sand and flinging it straight into Calvos's eyes. The giant staggered back, roaring in rage. The crowd gasped. Jaira's eyes widened. Dishonorable, someone shouted. Ronan didn't care. Survival over honor. With Calvos still blinded, Ronan moved. He ducked low, twisted around his opponent's back, and slammed his elbow into the back of Calvos's knee. The massive warrior collapsed onto one knee. Ronan grabbed the discarded dagger and pressed it against Calvos's throat. Yield, he panted. The arena fell deathly silent. Calvos's chest heaved, his fists clenched. But then, slowly, he bowed his head. I yield, he growled. The arena erupted. Ronan blinked. Wait, I won. Jaira's smirk from the platform was absolutely radiant. Yes, husband, you won. Ronan exhaled. He really, really hated this planet. Ronan Vale never expected to survive. Yet here he was, standing in the middle of the arena of blood, alive, victorious, and utterly exhausted. Calvos knelt before him, fists clenched, jaw tight. His massive shoulders rose and fell with each heavy breath. But the warrior had yielded, and that meant Ronan had won. The crowd was in chaos. Some cheered, others booed, and a few just stood there, utterly stunned. A human had bested one of their strongest warriors. Impossible. Ronan glanced up at Jaira, who still stood on the high platform above the arena. Unlike the crowd, she did not look shocked. She looked pleased. With a graceful leap, she landed beside him, her golden eyes practically glowing. You fought well, she said, tilting her head. Clever. Dishonorable, but clever. Survival first, Ronan muttered, wiping the sweat from his brow. Jaira turned to Calvos. You have lost. Do you accept the bond? Calvos's fists tightened. For a second, Ronan thought the warrior might lunge at him. But then, slowly, Calvas bowed his head. "I accept," he growled, though it clearly pained him. "The human has won. The bond stands." The crowd erupted once more, this time with laughter and roars of approval. Ronan exhaled. "So we're good now, right? No more trying to kill me." Calvas rose, his towering frame casting a shadow over Ronan. "For now, human. But if you wish to keep what you have claimed, you will need to prove yourself again." Ronan frowned. "That sounds like a threat." Calvas's mouth curved into a smirk, but he said nothing before turning and striding away. Ronan turned to Jaira. "Should I be worried about that?" She chuckled. "Not yet. But come, husband, there is much to discuss." He groaned, still getting used to that word. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him along. "You will adapt." The Walk of Victory. Jaira led Ronan through the heart of the city, where word of his dual victory had already spread. Warriors and merchants alike stared at him, some in amusement, others in curiosity. More than once, he heard the phrase "Jaira's human" whispered among the crowd. "Great," Ronan muttered. "Now I'm a tourist attraction." Jaira smirked. "You earned their interest. Few warriors accept a duel against Calvas and live." Ronan shook his head. "And what was that about proving myself again? I already won." "You won a duel, but to truly claim your place, you must prove you are more than just lucky." Ronan groaned. "Why do I feel like this is going to get worse?" "Because it will," Jaira said smoothly. They entered a towering black fortress, where guards bowed their heads as Jaira passed. Ronan noticed massive statues along the walls, each one depicting a Tharkai warrior in elaborate armor, their names carved beneath them. "Great ancestors of Velthera," Jaira explained. "Each was a leader, a conqueror, or a hero. My lineage is among them." Ronan frowned. "Wait, you're important, aren't you?" Jaira gave him a look. "You are only realizing this now." He exhaled. "Fantastic. So, not only am I married to an alien warrior, but I accidentally married into a royal family or something." She smirked. "Not royal, but close." Ronan shook his head. "I hate this planet." Ronan Vale sat at the massive stone table, his arms crossed, his mind racing. Slavers. A dozen ships. And they were looking for him. Great. Just when he thought his life couldn't get worse. The warrior with silver jaw tattoos, whom Jaira called Commander Vekros, tapped the holographic map. They landed on the outer rim of the Charzek wastes. No settlements nearby, only sand and ruins. Jaira narrowed her eyes. They came prepared. That means they have a target. Her golden gaze turned to Ronan. He sighed. "Before you ask, no. I don't know why they want me." Vekros frowned. "Slavers do not hunt random humans across the galaxy. You are valuable to someone." Ronan leaned back, exhaling. "I might have stolen a ship from a crime lord once." The room fell silent. Jaira blinked. "You what?" "It was an accident," Ronan said quickly. "Well, sort of. He cheated me in a deal. I took the ship. And now he might be a little mad." "A little mad," Jaira repeated flatly. "I mean, mad enough to hire intergalactic slavers to chase me across space." Vekros shook his head. "Then we cannot let them leave this planet alive. If your enemies know you are here, more will come." Ronan groaned, running a hand down his face. "Fantastic. So now I'm not just some weird alien's husband. I'm also the reason for an invasion." Jaira smirked. "You are not boring. At least." "Glad to hear it," Ronan muttered. Vekros turned back to the map. "We should strike before they secure their position. If they dig in, they will be harder to root out." Jaira nodded. "We attack at night." She stood, motioning to Ronan. "Come, husband. You need to prepare." Ronan sighed. "Why do I feel like prepare means something terrible?" The weapon hall. Chaira led Ronan into a vast underground chamber, its walls lined with racks of weapons, blades, spears, energy rifles, even massive war hammers that looked way too heavy for any human to lift. She walked to a panel and pressed a button. A case slid open, revealing a sleek black combat suit with gold plating. "Put this on," she ordered. Ronan frowned. "It looks expensive." "It is," she said. "Do not ruin it." With some effort, Ronan suited up. The armor was surprisingly light, but when he moved, he could feel a layer of energy shielding activate beneath the plating. Jaira tossed him a small metallic device. He caught it. "What's this?" "A wrist blaster. Simple enough for a human to use." Ronan examined the device, strapping it to his arm. "You know, for a bunch of warriors obsessed with honor, you sure like giving me high-tech weapons." She smirked. "Honor matters in a duel. This is war." Ronan sighed. "Great. First an accidental marriage, now an alien battlefield. My life just keeps getting better." Jaira stepped closer, her expression serious. "Do not get yourself killed." Ronan raised an eyebrow. "Is that concern?" She huffed. "You are mine now. It would be inconvenient to lose you so soon." He smirked. "Wow. Almost sounded like you care." She rolled her eyes. "Come, husband. It is time." The night raid. The Charzek wastes were a vast expanse of black sand and jagged rock, illuminated only by the two moons above. The slaver ships sat in the distance, their dark hulls gleaming under the pale light. Jaira, Ronan, and a squad of Tharkai warriors crouched on a high ridge, watching the camp below. Vekros spoke into a comms device. "Scouts report at least 30 hostiles. Well armed. Defenses are light, but they have auto turrets." Ronan frowned. "Do we have a plan that doesn't involve me dying?" Jaira smirked. "Yes. Stay behind me." Before he could argue, she raised her curved blade and signaled the attack. The Tharkai warriors moved like shadows, sliding down the ridge in near silence. Then, all at once, chaos erupted. Explosions tore through the slaver camp as Jaira's warriors struck fast and hard. Energy bolts filled the air as slavers scrambled to fight back. Ronan ducked behind a crate, firing his wrist blaster at a slaver who got too close. The energy shot sent the alien flying. "Nice," he muttered. Jaira, meanwhile, was a blur of motion, her blade slicing through enemies with deadly precision. One slaver tried to flank her, but before Ronan could shout a warning, she whipped around and drove her dagger straight into his chest. She looked at Ronan, smirking. "You were saying?" Ronan exhaled. "Remind me to never make you mad." A loud alarm blared from one of the slaver ships. "They're calling for backup," Vekros shouted. Ronan's stomach dropped. "Oh, come on." Jaira grabbed his wrist. "Then we finish this now." She pulled him forward, leading the charge as they rushed toward the ship. Ronan sprinted beside Jaira, his heart pounding as they rushed the slaver ship. The alarm still blared, echoing across the dark wasteland. The slavers were panicking, but a cornered enemy was dangerous. Blaster fire streaked through the air. Explosions shook the ground. The Tharkai warriors fought like silent predators, cutting through enemy lines with deadly precision. Jaira was a blur of motion, her golden armor flashing in the dim light. She vaulted over a barricade, slicing through a slaver with a single stroke before kicking another into the dirt. Ronan raised his wrist blaster, fired a shot, missed, then dove behind cover. "Great," he muttered. "My aim's still terrible." Jaira grabbed his arm and yanked him forward. "Then get closer." Ronan groaned. "I hate this plan." But he followed. The shipyard battle. The slavers had set up defenses, using cargo crates and supply skiffs as cover. A heavy turret whirred to life, its barrels glowing red. "Turret!" Vekros shouted. The gun spun toward them, its cannons charging. Ronan didn't think, he just acted. He grabbed a discarded energy grenade, pressed the trigger, and hurled it straight at the turret. The grenade hit dead center. Boom! The explosion ripped through the turret, sending flames and metal debris flying. Ronan stumbled back, wide-eyed. Holy! Jaira smirked. You do have some skill, after all. Let's pretend that was on purpose, Ronan muttered. The slavers, now desperate, fell back toward their ship. The loading ramp was lowering, and Ronan saw a group hauling a large metal crate aboard. Vekros cursed. They are taking something. Jaira's eyes narrowed. Or someone. Ronan frowned. Wait. Are they here for me, or are they stealing something else? Jaira didn't answer. She just charged forward. Inside the slaver ship, Ronan followed Jaira up the loading ramp, dodging sparks and stray gunfire. The ship's interior was dark, industrial, with metal walkways and flickering emergency lights. The slavers were trying to seal the cargo bay doors, but they were too slow. Jaira slammed a blade into the control panel, jamming it open. Inside, the slavers were gathered around the mysterious metal crate, desperately trying to activate its security locks. Jaira pointed her blade at them. Step away. One of the slavers, a tall alien with cybernetic eyes, snarled. This is bigger than you, warrior. Ronan tilted his head. Bigger than us. What's in the box? The slaver grinned, pressing a final command on his wrist device. The crate hissed, releasing a cloud of cold vapor. The locks clicked open. Then, the doors swung apart. Ronan's breath caught in his throat. Inside the crate was a girl. She looked human, but her eyes glowed silver, and her dark hair shimmered like metal strands. She stumbled forward, confused, blinking against the harsh lights. She couldn't be more than 16. Jaira's expression darkened. A prisoner? The cybernetic slaver sneered. She is worth more than this entire planet. Ronan took a step forward, hands raised. Hey kid, are you okay? The girl's silver eyes locked onto him. For a split second, Ronan saw something strange, his own reflection twisting in her pupils, as if she were analyzing him on a level he didn't understand. Then, suddenly, the entire ship shook. Alarms blared again, but this time, it wasn't from battle. It was something else. Jaira tensed. What now? The cybernetic slaver grinned. You should not have opened the crate. A deep rumbling noise filled the ship, and Ronan felt the air around them change, like the pressure had just dropped. The girl exhaled, and the walls around them warped, as if space itself was shifting under her breath. Ronan took a slow step back. Oh, that's not normal. Jaira raised her blade. What is she? The cybernetic slaver only laughed. She is a weapon. And now, you're all trapped with her. The girl's silver eyes pulsed, and the world shattered. The ship groaned, metal twisting as if it were alive. Ronan barely had time to react before the world around him fractured, not with an explosion, not with light, but with something far stranger. For a brief second, everything warped. The air felt thick, his vision split into dozens of reflections, and a sharp ringing sound filled his ears. Then, just as suddenly, everything snapped back into focus. Ronan stumbled, gripping a rail. What the hell just happened? The silver-eyed girl stood in the center of the cargo hold, staring at her hands as if she barely understood them. Around her, the floor rippled, the metal shifting like liquid before solidifying again. Jaira was already moving, her blade raised. She grabbed Ronan's arm and pulled him behind her. Stay back. She is dangerous. The cybernetic slaver laughed, though he was breathing hard. You have no idea what she is, do you? Ronan swallowed. Not a clue. Want to share with the class? The girl blinked at him, her silver eyes still glowing. She looked confused, as if she didn't fully understand what was happening either. The slaver smirked. She's not just a weapon. She's a Tierborn. Jaira stiffened. Impossible. Ronan frowned. I don't know what that means, but I really hate the sound of it. The ship shook again, and this time, it wasn't from an attack. It was her. The walls bent inward, like space itself was collapsing. Sparks burst from the control panels, and the emergency lights flickered wildly. The girl clutched her head. No, no, stop. It's too loud. Ronan's stomach twisted. She wasn't attacking them. She was losing control. The cybernetic slaver grinned, activating a hidden device on his wrist. And now, little human, you will come back with me. He didn't finish his sentence. The girl turned her gaze on him, and suddenly, he wasn't there anymore. No explosion, no flash of light, just gone. Ronan's blood ran cold. Oh hell. Nowhere and everywhere. For a long, breathless moment, no one spoke. Then, Vecros stormed in, his warriors behind him. The ship is secured. He stopped, eyes landing on the girl. What is? The ship lurched, and suddenly Ronan was falling. No, he was somewhere else. He blinked. Instead of the ship's metal floors, he was standing in a black void, surrounded by shifting fragments of reality, pieces of the battlefield, a memory of Earth, stars that weren't supposed to exist. And in front of him, the girl. She stood alone, her silver eyes filled with fear. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Ronan's chest tightened. Where are we? She hugged her arms. Between places. When I panic, I break things. Ronan exhaled. Okay, let's not do that. She flinched, struggling to breathe. I can't control it. They'd made me this way. Ronan clenched his fists. The slavers? She shook her head. No, the people before them, the ones who built me. Built. Ronan's mind raced. You're not human, are you? The girl hesitated. I don't know. The void around them shuddered, flickering between different places. A distant battlefield, a ruined city, a burning star. If they stayed here too long, they might never get back. Ronan took a slow breath. Hey, look at me. She lifted her gaze. You're not alone anymore, okay? Just focus. Take us back. The void rippled, then collapsed. Back in the real world. Ronan gasped, his knees hitting the cold metal floor of the slaver ship. Shira was there, gripping his shoulders. Ronan. He sucked in a breath. Okay. Ow. I think we're back. The girl stood nearby, shaking, but whole. The ship had stopped shifting, and reality seemed stable. For now. Vecros stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. She is too dangerous. Ronan stood up, blocking her from view. She didn't do this on purpose. Shira studied the girl, golden eyes thoughtful. Then she turned to Ronan. You trust her? He exhaled. I don't know, but I believe her. Shira's gaze flickered between them. Then she sheathed her blade. Then we take her with us. Vecros frowned. You are certain? Shira smirked. My husband seems to attract trouble. I might as well prepare for it. Ronan groaned. We are not calling her our daughter. Shira raised an eyebrow. We shall see. The girl blinked. Husband. Ronan buried his face in his hands. The ship's engines rumbled, struggling to stabilize after the chaos. The air was thick with smoke, and the distant sounds of battle outside were fading. The slavers were defeated, but the real danger stood right in front of them. A silver-eyed girl with power beyond understanding. Ronan turned to her, his heart still hammering in his chest. Are you okay? The girl nodded slowly, but her hands trembled. She looked at the ground, as if afraid to meet anyone's gaze. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Shira stepped forward, her golden eyes sharp yet calm. What is your name? The girl hesitated. I don't know. Ronan's stomach twisted. She wasn't just a weapon. She had been made and discarded, left to be bought and sold like an object. He clenched his fists. Then pick one. She blinked, as if the idea had never occurred to her. She glanced at the floor, deep in thought. Finally, she whispered, Lyra. Ronan smiled. That's a good name. Lyra gripped her arms, looking uncertain. But what now? If I stay with you, I might. She swallowed, her silver eyes flickering with fear. I might break everything again. Jaira studied her carefully. Then we will teach you control. Lyra's breath caught. You would help me? Ronan shrugged. We're already in deep trouble. What's a little more? Vecros, still standing guard, sighed. You make reckless choices, human. Ronan grinned. Yeah. But this one feels right. The final stand. Before they could leave, the ship's warning alarms blared again. Now what? Ronan groaned. Jaira tensed, her blade already drawn. Incoming. The slaver flagship was approaching fast, its massive cannons charging. If it fired, the entire area, including them, would be reduced to ashes. Ronan's stomach dropped. We need to move. Now. Vecros shouted into his comm. All warriors, evacuate immediately. Jaira grabbed Ronan's arm. We may not make it in time. Then, Lyra stepped forward. She turned toward the enemy ship, her silver eyes narrowing. The air shimmered around her, waves of invisible energy bending reality at her will. Wait, Ronan said, eyes widening. Lyra, what are you? She exhaled. The flagship stopped moving. Not because its engines failed, not because it had been hit, because space itself folded around it. Ronan could barely understand what he was seeing. The stars twisted, the ship's hull rippled like water, and then it vanished. Gone, as if it had never existed. Silence fell over the battlefield. Ronan let out a slow breath. That was terrifyingly cool. Lyra swayed on her feet, exhausted. Jaira caught her before she collapsed. Ronan stepped closer. Where did you send them? Lyra shook her head weakly. Far. They won't find us again. Vecros exhaled. That is power beyond anything I have seen. Jaira nodded. And now she is with us. Lyra looked up, eyes flickering with uncertainty. Are you sure? I don't want to be a burden. Ronan laughed. Burden? You just saved all our lives. That makes you family now. Lyra hesitated then. For the first time, she smiled. A new path. Back aboard Jaira's warship. The battle was over. The Tharkai warriors had won. The slavers were finished. Ronan stood beside Jaira, staring out at the stars. So, this was not how I expected my week to go. Jaira smirked. You expected to be a free man. Instead, you are my husband, part of my people, and now responsible for a girl who can break reality. Ronan sighed dramatically. When you say it like that, it sounds like a lot. Jaira leaned in closer, whispering in his ear. You like it. He did. Lyra walked up to them, still looking uncertain. So, what happens now? Jaira folded her arms. Now, we train you. We teach you who you are. And you choose your future. Lyra's silver eyes reflected the endless stars. I've never had a choice before. Ronan smiled. Then it's about time you did. Lyra took a deep breath. Then she lifted her chin, standing tall. Okay, let's go. The stars stretched before them, endless and waiting. And together, they stepped forward into the unknown. The warship's holographic display flickered to life, showing 3 sleek black vessels approaching fast. Their designs were unlike anything Ronan had seen before, angular, with shifting plates that seemed to move as if they were alive. Lyra stood near the control panel, her silver eyes glowing faintly. I don't recognize them, she said hesitantly. Ronan frowned. That's not comforting. Vecro's voice was sharp. They are not slaver ships, not Tharkai, not human. Jaira's expression darkened. Then what are they? The ship stopped just outside weapons range. Then, without warning, a message came through. A deep, distorted voice echoed across the bridge. You have taken what belongs to us. Ronan stiffened. I hate cryptic threats. Can we just skip to the part where they explain? Lyra froze, her breathing unsteady. They mean me. Jaira drew her blade. They will not have you. The voice spoke again. She is not yours to keep. Return her, or be erased. Vecros turned to Jaira. We cannot fight an enemy we do not understand. Ronan exhaled, then stepped forward, glaring at the display. Listen, mystery villain, Lyra is her own person. She doesn't belong to anyone. So why don't you crawl back into whatever dark hole you came from? For a moment, there was only silence. Then the voice whispered, You do not understand what she is. The screen flickered, then dark figures appeared in the hologram. They were tall, with elongated limbs, and their skin was pitch black, almost blending into the darkness of space. Their eyes glowed red, shifting like molten embers. Lyra gasped, stepping back. I remember them. Ronan turned to her. Who are they? Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. The ones who made me. The storm begins. The enemy ships moved, spreading into an attack formation. The bridge flashed red, warning of incoming weapons locks. Shields up, Jaira commanded. Vecros snarled. We are outnumbered. Lyra clenched her fists. I can stop them. Ronan grabbed her shoulders. Not like last time. You almost tore reality apart. She looked up at him, her silver eyes filled with fear. If I don't, we all die. Jaira glanced at Ronan. Then we protect her. Together. The first enemy ship fired, sending a bolt of dark energy straight toward them. The ship shook violently, sparks flying from the walls. Shields won't hold long. Vecros barked. Lyra closed her eyes. The air around her shimmered, and for a second, everything felt heavy, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Ronan watched as the stars warped around them, space itself bending to her will. Then, the enemy ship stopped mid-attack, frozen, suspended in time. Lyra gasped, stumbling back, her body shaking. I can't hold them forever. Ronan caught her, steadying her. You don't have to. He turned to Vecros. Target their engines. Now. Vecros didn't hesitate. The Tharkai warship's cannons fired, striking the frozen enemies with perfect precision. In seconds, the three ships were disabled, their lights flickering, their weapons useless. Then Lyra released her hold, and time snapped back into place. The enemy ships drifted, powerless. For the first time, the distorted voice sounded, afraid. You have made a mistake, human. Ronan crossed his arms. Yeah, get in line. The screen flickered off, and within moments, the enemy ships jumped to hyperspace, vanishing into the void. Silence filled the bridge. Jaira sheathed her blade. They will be back. Vecros nodded grimly. And next time, they will not underestimate us. Lyra looked at Ronan. I put you all in danger. Ronan smiled. You also saved us. Again. She hesitated. I don't know if I can control this forever. Jaira placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we teach you. No one fights alone. Ronan sighed. Looks like we just made some new enemies. Jaira smirked. It would not be an adventure without them. Lyra looked out into the stars, her silver eyes reflecting the unknown dangers ahead. And for the first time, she didn't feel afraid. She felt ready.